Hey everyone, hey everyone. This is Ian McHenry from Beyond Pricing bringing you episode 5 of This Week in Airbnb and Beyond. Amazing. We got in 5 episodes. Heard from a lot of folks that are loving the show, which is really awesome. Definitely share it with your other Airbnb host friends, your vacation rental host friends, and shoot us an email if you have any suggestions for people to have on or topics you'd like to see covered. But hopefully you guys are enjoying it, and we'll give you this latest week's news from Airbnb. It's been a couple weeks. Apologize for that. I was away getting married to the lovely Colleen Kelly, and so that's exciting news on my end. We have with us today, thank you, Stephanie, as you heard, we have with us Stephanie from OurBnB in San Diego, and she has been so kind to join us, having just had a child. How many days ago is it, Stephanie?
Less than a week.
Less than a week. Amazing. I mean, property management is hard enough as it is. I don't know how you're doing it with a newborn. I don't know how you're joining us and making time for us with a newborn, but thank you so much for joining us, Stephanie.
Thanks for having me. It's good. It kind of like things like this help me feel normal again. So I'm happy to have normal human conversation. So thanks for having me on.
Good. Well, hopefully it'll be normal. Hopefully it'll be somewhat human. We'll kick it off. There was news a couple weeks ago, and I was hoping to try to get Kelly on for this, but there's a super host in Bangkok, and he named Kelly, and I'm going to murder his last name. Sorry, Kelly Clampin. And he the news out is that he was kicked off of Airbnb sort of with really no explanation. And he wrote this kind of long blog post, and we'll post a link to that. And it was picked up by some of the travel websites like T News, and then TechCrunch actually picked it up as well. And there really was kind of no response from Airbnb. And basically no explanation. And he had, I think, 4 or 5 listings there. And he was a super host. And not only that, he had actually been invited by Airbnb to participate in the Airbnb Open, which is their big conference that they have every year. This year will be in Paris this fall. And so he was, and he knew all the Airbnb community managers, and he was really tied into it. And he's really kind of held up as this shining example of great hosts. And then suddenly he was kicked off, and he hasn't heard anything from them since. So what this brings up, and we saw something earlier in Los Angeles where Airbnb kicked off a couple of property managers there, Globe Homes, AE Hospitality, who was actually on the show a few episodes ago. That one kind of made a little bit of sense in that they're trying to fight this sort of PR battle that it's all about, individuals, and, these were folks with 50 or so listings. I mean, granted, they've been around since before Airbnb started, and property management is this kind of growing thing in the Airbnb space, and Stephanie, you're part of this. But it kind of raises this question with Kelly, really his whole business was on Airbnb. Stephanie, what's your reaction to this? Like, how did this sort of affect you? What have you heard from Airbnb hosts? Is this worrisome for people?
Yeah, I definitely think so, especially the fact that Airbnb seems to be so forward thinking in terms of customer service and their branding. For them not to give us a response is really, really out of character. So it kind of makes you question their brand overall. And like, are you really as transparent as you say you are? That's the first thing that comes to mind. And then, there's a whole other side where it's like, you see on other social media sites where people, like Uber drivers and things like that, they get kicked off the platform, and they're actually doing something shady that, they're not really saying. Nothing to Kelly at all. Airbnb did respond, and they did say there was they said about the safety and trust. There was something to do with safety and trust. And Kelly did say that he had these weird logins in the US. And that's a really, like, I think there's something to that. But for Airbnb to say that they're so transparent and have like outstanding customer service, I think one of the concerns that we're seeing, and I don't know if you've been noticing this too, but I think Airbnb customer service has deteriorated. Like now, I mean, I used to call before and the reps would go above and beyond. And I was like, wow, that was amazing. I'm going to tell everybody about you. And now I call and it's like, thanks. I
Yeah.
guess.
I mean, is that just the evolution? I mean, that brings up, a couple good points. On the customer service front, I mean, is that it seems like before, a lot of Airbnb hosts kind of grew up with Airbnb, folks
Uh-huh.
like Kelly that have been around for 2, 3, 4 years, which doesn't seem like much, but Airbnb was much smaller then.
Uh-huh.
As they scaled to have millions now, over 1 million listings, but it's probably hard for every company to sort of create that same high level of service while still, managing to make a profit.
Yeah, they
um,
could take a page out of Zappos. I think
hmm,
Zappos did it with their customer service. That's what they're known for.
interesting.
I think Airbnb used to be known for that, but again, I've heard so many things now where you call and it's like, I don't know, the customer, they just don't seem that into it. They don't seem to be the brand ambassadors that I used to call and talk
Right.
to.
Right. Which brings up this other interesting point, right? Which is, other sites like HomeAway or Flipkey and ones like that, they kind of see themselves more as, just a middleman.
Uh-huh.
They list your place, they handle the transaction, but, you as the owner or the host are really the people providing the customer service and all those sorts of things. But Airbnb, it seems like their major, or one of their major differentiators here was that their customer service would step in and they would kind of
Mm-hmm.
arbitrate, all of these disputes between guests and hosts, which happen a lot in terms of extra guest fees. I'm sure you've run into plenty of that. Damages, arbitrating on, oh, did they actually scratch that table or was that there before?
Mm-hmm.
Um, do you think they've sort of set that expectation so that you as an Airbnb host or as a property manager expect Airbnb to always be there as that arbitrator?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like when you log on, they're like, secure trust verification. That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of what they keep reiterating. So for them not to, and they don't have to necessarily say what they believe or what happened,
Yeah.
but they could say, there was actually, we did find something. If Kelly wants to speak more on it, or just open up the line of dialogue
Mm.
a little bit more, especially like you said about him, he was going to speak in Paris. I mean, it's just a really red flag. We've actually, for us, we're actually already taking steps. Like he mentioned, he's posting more on Flipkey, he's posting on other
Right.
sites. We've done that. We're also trying to make it a more of a two-sided market where we're trying to capture guest email addresses so that if they're ever back in San
Yeah.
Diego, we don't even have to use Airbnb or anybody else. It would be
Yep.
just a direct, cut them out altogether because of
Yeah.
this. That's how it affects it, because it's scary, because it's like if you're relying on one platform and that platform decides because you violated one word in their 20-page COS agreement,
Yeah.
like what are you supposed to do?
Yeah. And, it's really interesting. And it's kind of this reminder that, there's a lot of marketplaces out there. There's a lot of platforms out there that people have built businesses on, right? We
Mm-hmm.
see that with, Zynga in the early days on Facebook, or, even BuzzFeed on Facebook had built all of their whole business on there. And then if Facebook changes their algorithm,
Mm-hmm.
and Facebook is not nearly as transparent as Google is about things that go into their algorithm. And I would say Airbnb is even further removed from that, though they do an okay job. Google tries to be, I don't know. What do you think? Do you think, should Airbnb, there's multiple things. One is this kind of terms of service, and Kelly got kicked off because maybe somebody was illegally accessing his account, but instead of like shutting down that illegal access, that kicked him
Right.
off. There wasn't enough communication. On the other hand, if you're going to devote yourself to a single channel like Airbnb, do you think Airbnb should take a piece out of Google's playbook and say, hey, these are the rules that you need to play by, and be very transparent about it so that people know that if they're gonna, if their whole game is going to be played in the Airbnb sphere, these are the rules for success? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that they should take a out of Google. Like, I think that's the way to go. Say,
Mhm.
if you're going to be our brand ambassador, we're going to fly you out here. We're going to put you up. This is kind of what. But here's what you need to say
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
do. Which I don't think. I mean, Kelly, he seems pretty like, after reading his Medium post and just his other couple blogs about it, he seems pretty like open.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem
Yeah.
to have a problem sharing.
Yep.
Um, So it's interesting. I think what Kelly needs to do is he needs to go to like all the little spin-off accounts on Airbnb and like represent them, like get contracts with all of them and kind of say "F you, Airbnb."
Wait, but spin-off accounts? You mean the
yeah, like he should go represent like Guestkey or Flipkey and like try to get them, on Team Kelly and like promoting his listing and stuff like that. Like,
yeah, I know it, and it's interesting. I mean, and I think it's interesting too, right? Because Airbnb has done this incredible job of getting average people on, to list their place and to really become micro hoteliers, to be part of this hospitality industry, to host people in their houses, people that have no experience in that, never did it before, and maybe never thought about about being hosts or being, they wouldn't think of, they weren't like dreaming of opening a true bed and breakfast, but suddenly like they're brought into that, and they made that really easy for people. So they captured them very early on. But when you look at, when you move from it just being kind of a thing that you do every now and then to something that's income that you depend on, do you think this will, is this the moment where everyone suddenly opens their eyes and says, wow, I need to be at least on HomeAway and VRBO and maybe Flipkey, or if you're just sharing an extra room on something like Homestay, or do you think this will kind of get buried and everyone will still kind of be all in on Airbnb? I don't know. What do you?
It's funny because I only talk to people that are crazy Airbnbers.
Right. There's almost this cult of it, right?
Yeah, we were the cult, and we were all like super freaked out. We're like, oh my gosh, we're just like reading through our messages and just double checking our listings, and we're like, is there something we're
doing wrong?
Yeah, that we don't even know about. Like, for example, one of my friends didn't even try. He used his photography, Airbnb photography photos, and like they emailed him like right away, like, what are you doing setting up an account using these photos? And he was like, what, like, this is what you're gonna like how do you find that out? Another girlfriend had the same thing. I don't know if it's a little shady, but she had a bunch of Airbnb credits.
Yep.
And she wanted to give them to one of her friends. So she just booked her friend's place. But literally, she was sitting there with her friend on 2 different phones, booking her friend's place. Right. And Airbnb emailed them right away and canceled the transaction. So they're like little like Sherlock Holmes. And I think that they like figure things out it kind of is freaky. Yeah. Which makes us weirded out too, because then again we're like, well, what if we just do one little thing and we get pulled and kicked off? And we're the Kellys, and we're the Kellys of Airbnb.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if your whole business is on that.
Exactly.
I mean, it's sort of the flip side of a coin, though, right? The reason why you probably got started with Airbnb was it was easy and it had all this security built in, right? At the end of the day, they're just they're trying to create trust and security where before, you might, there were, people don't even realize this. Before, people would book vacation rentals on Craigslist. And you're sitting there being like, gosh, am I going to really send $1,000 deposit to this random person in, Destin, Florida? How do I figure out if this is legit, right? And that was part of the reason why in some of these vacation places they had property managers, because you could look them up. They would have a business license. There would be a better business bureau that you could report it to. But here, when it's just purely individuals, Airbnb comes in and creates all this trust. But it's are they? I guess with this, are they overstepping that? Like, or is it? Do you think they don't realize the impact of this? They think it's just a guy with 5 listings and they have 1 million listings.
I think there's a little bit of that. It sounds like there's some ego involved, especially the fact that the CTO said that he was going to get back to him and never did. Like, that's kind of, that's for me is like, all right, dude, you said you were going to get back to him, give him something. Yeah. And again, going back to, like you said, if you want to go their brand, their trust, humankind or mankindness belong anywhere. Well, don't belong at Kelly's house because apparently you can't belong there,
Yeah. And it's crazy because, you get it, right? Like when there's the guy with the terrible house that never shows up or the photos don't match it, like, thank God for Airbnb.
Kick him off. Yeah.
Well, and they're doing a great job at that, right? Like there's way fewer scam listings. Those are the folks to go after. This was literally a guy that they had invited to be a speaker at their main main event, and he can't seem to get a voice with them. It's scary. We'll see. I mean, I'm interested to see if more comes of it. I definitely know, especially, obviously beyond pricing works with Airbnb. You obviously work with Airbnb. Like it plays a significant role in your life and in your business. And so there is always this tendency to not to disrupt the big guy, not to wake the beast and
fly under the radar.
Right. In many cases, especially when when they start acting in ways where you don't fully understand why. You could get it, with the Los Angeles incident where they kicked off property managers. It says to you sort of beware if you're in an urban area, they might not like people with multiple listings under one account because that's bad press for them, right? Okay, that's good to know.
Right.
But here, it's hard to say, hey, what's the lesson? Like you said, you're looking and thinking, oh gosh, what is it possibly in this whole terms of service that I'm violating? So we'll see if that continues. It'll be interesting to see if
hopefully at some point, something comes out of it.
And who knows? It could be silent. It could be they understand that, wow, they kind of overstepped there, and they'll just be quiet, and it won't happen again, and everyone will forget, right? So we'll see. In similar news, kind of on the other side, TripAdvisor, which is, as you mentioned, you started listing on Flipkey as well. Flipkey is owned by TripAdvisor. For those of you that don't know, TripAdvisor, the ones that do TripAdvisor hotel ratings. And Flipkey is probably like the third biggest player in the pure vacation rental space. Booking.com is kind of close behind there. Flipkey just recently had a letter sent from a bunch of the largest property managers in the U.S., including Vacasa, which is this, for those that don't know them, it's fairly prominent in the vacation rental manager industry, one of the biggest ones, one of the fastest growing, one of the more sophisticated. Sent an email to the CEO there saying, hey, this whole transition and what they're doing right now is they're transitioning the Flipkey brand to just be part of the broader TripAdvisor brand, so that instead of booking through this Flipkey, whenever you go to TripAdvisor and you're booking hotels, you'll also see TripAdvisor vacation rentals. As part of this transition, a lot of their listing data was inaccurate. Their feeds, basically these property managers have, hundreds of properties, and they rely on, an API to feed updated rates and information about the listings. But that was all kind of getting messed up, and they were getting all these problems with their listings. The response kind of from Flipkey was, it was lukewarm. We're kind of working on it and stuff like that. But it was interesting. It's been this it kind of seems like there's this trend where, is this a time where, the three big players, we haven't really heard anything from HomeAway, but the three big players are getting too cocky, where they're not listening as much to their users, and that's going to come and bite them. It's interesting to have the two happen in 1 week, kind of an uprising from all the lowly managers and owners.
All the lowly, the
all
peons.
The lowly. Well, it's hard, right? Because this isn't the hotel industry.
Right.
There are, for vacation rentals, they do kind of band together with the Vacation Rental Managers Association, which is the largest one in the U.S. Although VRMA is still fairly inactive when it comes to speaking as one. They haven't been as active in all this legislation in the different cities. They haven't been as active on speaking for the smaller vacation rental managers when dealing with these platforms. But one of the things that's different about vacation rentals is, there's no big players. There's no Starwood. There's no Hilton. There's no Marriott. And so there's not as big a voice to sort of represent everyone in the space. I don't know. You're new, right, Stephanie, to Flipkey and TripAdvisor. You just recently started listing there. Is that right?
Yeah, I just recently started listing there, and it isn't. I mean, it's not as sexy as Airbnb to use, obviously.
Unwrap that. What do you mean? How is it not as sexy?
Well, it's just not as intuitive, I guess. to to post your listing and to like use it. It's just not as it's not as sexy. I mean, Airbnb is like, I'm getting these alerts like you've hosted 3 people in a row now, or had 3 non-stop hosting, just little things like that, or they make it like fun, share your milestone, whereas the other ones are just very sterile compared to it.
Oh, interesting. Got it. Yeah. So the host experience, it's not as integrated and touchy-feely and all of those sorts of things.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Have you started seeing? How long ago did you start listing on Flipkey or TripAdvisor?
Just like last month, but like I said, when the Kelly thing came out, that's when we're like, okay, well, we should like get our listings up there. It doesn't hurt. I've just been told, like, from other hosts here in San Diego, that they don't like basically I would say 5% of their bookings come from other sources besides Airbnb.
Interesting.
So that kind of like, to put all the effort into getting it up, we were kind of like, but then again, it mitigates the risk of something if we violated the one TOS on page 23. But I think also in the Flipkey article that was, and I've kind of had this whole complaint being in San Diego. I live on the coast. So it's very, in the past, it's been very vacation oriented. So a lot of the people only rent during the holidays, during the summer, and then their houses sit vacant. And the property management industry hasn't changed here in God only knows how long. So I think that there might be something to be said too for the property management not wanting to change, or not being as willing to change as Flipkey shifts to try to develop a different platform, or maybe they're even pivoting a little bit and trying to make it a little bit more Airbnb-esque. Because like they said, I think in the article that now you can list a private room, whereas before you couldn't. So I think that property managers need to be more receptive to understanding that the industry is changing as well because of these things. So while they might have been the biggest person, they're like the Ford, and now they're going to go up against the Tesla. So they need to shift a little bit too.
I mean, that's interesting. And you're right. Like in that article, they mentioned that one of the key changes this year has been TripAdvisor's increased focus on homeowners as demand to list independent properties continues to rise sharply in the vacation rental market. Which is interesting because we've seen both trends, right? Which is first everyone starts listing their place on, as independent homeowners, and then they think, gosh, this is too much work, right? And then they employ someone like OurBnB in San Diego or any of the other vacation rental managers. So with TripAdvisor starting to list rooms and houses, which is kind of this totally separate category, right? Like my wife and I would probably not go and stay in an extra room in somebody's house the same that we would stay in the entire house. Do you think that's sort of the right move for them to start saying, you know what, we're going to try to emulate Airbnb here and really sort of ignore property managers? I shouldn't say ignore, but they basically said there that
they did.
I mean, it was kind of amazing how much it was like, hey, that's great. Sorry, we're a little bit more focused on becoming more like Airbnb, right?
That's basically what they said.
I mean, do you think that's sort of the right move there, or is this are they playing too much to what the media is saying, and and maybe investors being worried that Airbnb is just gonna eat their cake?
I mean, I don't know. It's interesting. It'll be really interesting to see. I don't know too many statistics on private room rentals versus the whole house. I do know that from a safety perspective, from like a potential homeowner, renting out your room is more secure just because you're there, obviously. So from that perspective, that makes sense. But I don't think, I also feel like, no offense to HomeAway and TripAdvisor or Flipkey, but I don't think they're not very creative.
Right.
So they haven't been creative for a couple of years. They haven't thought outside the box. So now they're playing catch up, and the only thing they can do is like chase tail versus like come up with their own ideas.
It's that innovator's dilemma, right? Gosh, it's it's hard to be a company that has to hit quarterly, metrics and quarterly financials to keep your stock price up. How do you continue to innovate in that? It'll be interesting. Well, one thing one thing that TripAdvisor, they bought Flipkey. If people don't know the full history, like Flipkey actually used to not do bookings of vacation rentals. They were actually just ratings of vacation rentals. So it was kind of a third-party rating service. So you could say, just like you do with TripAdvisor, hey, thanks for staying, at my vacation rental. And you may have booked directly, you may have booked back in the day through VRBO, whatever it was, rate me on Flipkey. Obviously, TripAdvisor bought that because they were basically the same thing for hotels. But it's interesting that they haven't, they haven't leveraged that as much. Nobody goes on Airbnb and says, hey, I have a, 4.5 stars on Flipkey. Because it's not like this universal thing, but you do see that on Expedia,
right?
That on Orbitz, you see the TripAdvisor rating for hotels everywhere. And I wonder if that's because that's one of these assets that they have that they could really leverage, which would be really powerful. One side note, I don't know. Let's see. So you said like a month ago. I'm guessing it wasn't probably in time to see the impact of Comic-Con in San Diego, but here in San Francisco, Dreamforce is coming up, and Dreamforce,
yep,
huge event, 130,000 people. The Salesforce conference here in the Soma district of San Francisco, and hotel prices are at like $1,000 a night at the W. It's crazy, right? It sells out, and nobody really lists their place in San Francisco the same way that like in Philadelphia for the Pope's visit or for the Super Bowl, everyone all of a sudden throws their listing up. And so you still see these really high prices on Airbnb. What we saw in addition to that is, we have a couple, we'll call them dormant listings that are still up there, but that don't actually get booked. We have them on HomeAway, we have them on Flipkey, we have them on Airbnb. We saw this huge increase in people, and these were at one bedrooms, a single picture, no description, like the worst listing you've ever seen.
The Craigslist.
Oh yeah, it's terrible, right? It's just there as a placeholder, and I think they're all like at $500 a night for like a 1 bedroom. And we got tons of inquiries on Airbnb, obviously, and we got tons of inquiries on Flipkey. We got very few on HomeAway and VRBO. Which was really interesting to see. And what it kind of says to us and says to me is that, if you're looking for the closest competitor to Airbnb, it might actually be Flipkey in terms of, people looking for hotel alternatives in urban markets.
Agreed.
Right. And then I guess it makes sense because people are going to TripAdvisor to book a hotel. They think, oh, it's not available. And you can feed in a vacation rental into that flow pretty easily. They don't necessarily think HomeAway when they're going for, for work or for a shorter stay or for things like that.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see how Flipkey kind of is able to do that. And if sort of, if they continue to neglect property managers enough, will they just start?
I'll just reach out to Kelly. They should go get Kelly right now. They should make Kelly the face of Flipkey.
It's interesting. And, Flipkey's at all these Vacation Rental Manager Association meetings. I know they're going to be at HomeAway's ResFest, where we'll be in a month or so. So they're very much tied into it. I just don't know what's going there. We'll have to talk to them soon and see how that's going. But that's always kind of been their core and their base, right, is these property managers. And so we'll see, if they're able to keep that while moving into Airbnb territories. At the same time, we've all seen this news is Airbnb is starting to move into Flipkey's territory with property managers now, with their integrations with Kigo and with LiveRes and these things to try to appeal more to property managers with multiple listings. So we'll see. It seems like everyone is trying to go into each other's direction. So I'm going to take this sort of back to, one thing that, we talk, you might talk about with your owners and that we talk about with a lot of our users is kind of understanding booking on Airbnb and understanding how you show up high on Airbnb rankings, right?
Right.
And if you're like, Kelly, we keep coming back to Kelly.
Good
Let's
old
get
Kelly.
Kelly on here. You know, and then you're completely reliant on it, same as if you're completely reliant on Google traffic, it really matters to you sort of, how this stuff works. And so we saw several months ago, they kind of did this greater emphasis on instant booking, right? If you started looking on the map, you would see those little lightning bolts that really kind of called out those places that were instantly bookable. What did you think about that, actually? Let me ask you that. What do you think about instant booking?
I know. This has been my daily talk. This is how we talk about. Do you use Instant Book or not?
Right. Yeah, it's a big topic broadly. HomeAway's starting to do it.
Well, then it's like, if you're a super host, are you more high up than an instant booker? It's like this whole conundrum. So Instant Book has messed up a couple reservations for us, in terms of that it changed the pricing. Even like, for example, because of we had your pricing, we were using beyond pricing, and we had it set up, and then when we flipped on instant booking, it changed. It converted over to Airbnb's recommended pricing. So it was Labor Day weekend, and we're like $50 a night short. So we're contacting, Airbnb, and of course we're getting that mediocre customer service. So we just have to we were just kind of working with the guests a little bit to explain what happened. But Instant Book is interesting. I wish they had more. So that was on my wish list, is that you had more control over the pricing on Instant Book. And then I wish you had more options than just get anybody or get someone with one review.
Right.
It's like you get the bare minimum or you get next to the bare minimum. It doesn't make any sense.
So we've heard that a lot, and that's, again, if you've been around for over a year, which is old in Airbnb terms.
You're old, yeah.
You're old when it comes to Airbnb. They used to have it where, I forget if there are multiple options, but one of them was 3 reviews.
Right, exactly.
And 3 reviews is a little bit better because, again, a black hat tactic that I hear some people use is, you have a new listing, you want to make sure you get a review because people don't like to book unreviewed places. So, you have your friend book for one night, give them a special offer for $10. They write a review for you. Granted, maybe you'll get a call from Airbnb now. But, then that person would have one review as a guest, and you would have one review as a host. But, that's kind of that's a black hat tactic. We don't advise people to do that. Really, what you're saying is, we're okay having Instant Book, but really we want somebody that knows what it's like to stay at an Airbnb that 3 people have trusted and had positive experiences with, right? 3 points make a line, more or less. And that 1 point maybe is not enough for you to feel comfortable with just letting anybody stay.
Exactly. And then I think maybe even the star rating, like if they said that, like an average or something, I don't know. It's just the review seems really subjective too. It's just this whole thing. And like I said, it messed up the pricing on, like, literally my friend, he did it. He turned it on last weekend too, because he wanted to get a booking, and somehow it got set to $10 for one night, and someone booked and he didn't realize it. Yeah. And he called Airbnb, and like, they were like, something happened, but there's really not much we can do.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was the $10 the price tip recommended price?
It must have been, because that's what I think happening to the girl's house down in San Diego that we did. But yeah, it was kind of, that's all we did Labor Day weekend, was like to turn on Instant Book and then to have all these problems.
Oh geez. Wow.
Yeah.
And that's kind of this other interesting point that we always talk about. Vacation rentals are hard. Vacation rentals are hard because if you were one with Instant Book, you need to know that the prices and the availability are always up to date and always accurate, right?
Thanksgiving, Christmas, everything.
All of these, right? And if for some reason, Airbnb's calendar, they're not pulling it, if you're on multiple listings and it's pulling from a Google calendar, if it's not doing that frequently enough, then you could get a double booking.
Yep.
If it does, like you said, with the prices, then you run into this problem. And, and then if you cancel, you lose your superhost status. And so you're kind of in this tough situation.
So they need more options, I think, is what, like, if you could turn on Instabook for like this weekend or, for 1 month. And again, on the app too, because a lot of people are like, we're doing it remotely and we're on our phones.
Right.
You can't really change too much. You have to go to a browser. So it's like, if you're like running home to like change a price and turn on Instabook, it's just, it's silly.
It's interesting. We were talking about this again, this is, Airbnb has done incredible amounts. Their app is, a lot better than other ones that are out there in the space. And I think a lot of people we all get kind of spoiled by it. We're just hoping that they'll improve on that, right?
Ian, are you trying to say I have first world problems?
That would be basically what I'm trying to say here. That's
okay.
the appropriate term.
You can just say it.
So, kudos to everything they've done. But we were laughing because, Apple just had, their announcement of their new Apple TV, and it has all these apps, and Airbnb, of course, was part of that launch with their, now you can book an Airbnb on your TV, but you still can't do all these things on their mobile app host, right? It's like you can answer inquiries on an Apple Watch and on your watch, but you can't update pricing or whatever on your calendar on there. I think it helps for PR for those other things versus these things that actually sort of help hosts.
Help the PMs.
Yeah, help the PMs, exactly, the property managers. Yeah. And so one of the, you talked about, does it matter if it's, if you're instantly bookable? Does it matter if you're a super host? And one of the things that, I know has resonated with people that we've talked about that they didn't realize, which is with these marketplaces, just like with Facebook, the way that these algorithms work at a very high level is they're trying to optimize for conversion, more or less, right? They're trying to make sure that when someone looks for something and they show them that listing, that they're going to show the one that is the highest probability that the person will actually book it, right? And there's so many things that go into that, and they're constantly refining this. There's actually some great articles on nerds.airbnb.com about how they think about this and do this, and they're really, really good at that, and they should be. It's similar to like Facebook. If you put a post up there, it doesn't actually get shown to everybody, but if and the more or less how they do it, this is a very basic level, is when something's new, they throw it to the top of the pile, and it kind of has gravity. If you think of it, it starts sinking. Have you ever played Flappy Bird? Rest in peace. Or somebody brought it back, I think, right? With Flappy Bird, it's this kind of bird that flies along and it's constantly sinking, and then you press the screen and it kind of flaps up, and then it starts sinking and it goes up and it sinks. If enough people like a post on Facebook early on, it keeps rising up. And so as it gets older, it sinks down, and then as people like it, engage with it, comment on it, it kind of goes up. And that's a basic kind of what they call like a newsfeed algorithm. And you'll see similar things with Expedia, with Airbnb and all of them, which is they'll put a post up there, and then the more often people click on it, the more often people book it, the longer it kind of stays there on that front page, right? And so there's, which is really interesting to see because, this was always our theory. We figured, hey, this is normally how people do these kinds of algorithms. Now they just launched this feature where if you look in search, and again, I think they've rolled it out to everybody. You have it right, Stephanie, where they'll show you the new listings. So if we look at like San Francisco right now, I'm going to do this right now for no particular date. You'll see that a decent number of the listings there on the first page are actually new, which is interesting. And it's kind of like, it gives you an idea of, hey, this is why this place doesn't actually have any bookings, right? It's not because it's terrible and nobody likes it. It's actually because this is a brand new listing that's hot off the presses. All right, let's see. On their first page there, 1, 2...
I think they should do this for new users too.
What's that?
They should have this for new users as well. It should be a two-sided.
Oh yeah, for guests.
Yeah, for guests.
It should be like interesting, right?
Yeah, get first world problems again. But I think that they could do something for guests too, and be like, if you're a new time guest.
Yeah. So unwrap that. What would you advise Airbnb do for new guests?
I literally put on my listings now, if you're a first-time guest, I'm happy to accommodate you, but this is what we need to understand before we book anything.
Yep.
I won't call or text you or email you prior to you booking. I won't look up your website. You do need a photo and you need some verifications.
Yep.
I know you have the money and you've been on VRBO for 20 years, but that's not going to fly over here. Of course, I don't say it like this.
Yes, right. But we care about identity.
Yeah, it's a big deal. And then lastly, just say, we've had a couple issues with cleaning. So I just say the cleaning fee is a basic cleaning fee. It's not because with the vacation homes in VRBO, people are used to just partying it up and the cleaning ladies clean up whatever.
Yep.
So I just say, the cleaning fee is a basic clean. If you want to do more than the basic clean, that's fine. But just to give you some idea, it takes us X amount of time. It costs us X amount of dollars. So anything above that, we will charge back to you.
Yeah. And, it's interesting. So I had a conversation with actually a friend at Airbnb, and we talked about this. We're like, hey, you need to have a new guest onboarding, right? Because you get all these people that are trying to pull, really the new people that are trying Airbnb are coming over from hotels, right? They're used to hotels and they're experimenting and dipping their toe in this. Why don't you have a new guest onboarding? And they're like,
exactly.
We absolutely thought about this. And they have, but they, the concern for them is, as with any kind of, there's always this tension with apps and with startups and with whatever is you want to get people on and booking as quickly as possible. You don't want to lose them, but you want them to stick around, right? And so if you don't educate them, if you don't make them jump through a few hoops, great, they're going to book, but then they're going to book the wrong place and they're going to expect it to be like a hotel and there won't be a concierge and they'll hate it and they'll never come back, right? But if you make them jump through a few hoops, maybe you lose 25% of the people, but then everybody else is actually going to have a fantastic experience because their expectations were set appropriately.
Yeah, and right now, they're kind of putting that work on the hosts. That's what they're doing. It's died down a little bit, but I felt like maybe 6 months ago, everybody was a new user, and it was having to explain everything to them. And finally, and you can't even say, "Here's Airbnb's number, call them." Because they block it. Right. So sometimes so it was kind of or here's their website, here's the link where you can find this information. Right. You kind of had to play customer service for Airbnb, which I'm sure Kelly spent many hours doing that. So contributing to his grief.
Back to Kelly.
I love Kelly.
This is the Kelly episode.
Yeah, we're getting Kelly on. Get Kelly on.
Good honor, Kelly. We'll get him on. He's in Thailand. Show him a note. We'll get him on.
He has time on his hands now.
I know. Well, people don't know. Kelly has a real job.
Oh, sorry.
He's just a fantastic host with a real job. So anybody that's worried about Kelly right now, Kelly's doing fine. He's doing all right there in Bangkok. If you want to send donations, though, join Travelers Chat, and I'm sure he would accept them. Well, awesome. Hey, cool. This has been a great episode. Thank you, Stephanie, for joining us. I'm going to let you get back to your 1 week old. It's amazing that you've taken so much time.
Thanks. It was fun. It was really fun. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for all your insight. If you want to plug something, go ahead now. Tell them a bit about OurBnB.
Yeah, for sure. If you're down in San Diego or if you're traveling, even if you need remote help, I kind of have been dabbling in that, but I'm obsessed with Airbnb. And so down here, I've started a property management company where we do everything for you, including, part of it is meeting and greeting the guests. So making sure everything afterwards is looking good, hooking up with cleaning ladies if that's what you need, even just doing your listing. We've seen a lot of just making some small changes on the listings and people being able to double their price or double their occupancy, which is pretty profound.
That's awesome. Great. And how can they find you? What's the web address?
The website is OurBnB, so ourbnbsd.com, or you can always hit me up via email. It's my name, Stephanie Krieg at mac.com, KRIEG.
Awesome. And we'll put links to all that in the show notes. And OurBnB is also a great Beyond Pricing partner there in San Diego. So you'll get the best pricing for your place, unless Instant Book is turned on in Airbnb.
Thanks, Ian. Exactly.
Awesome. Well, this has been an incredible episode. Stephanie, we'll have to have you come back. Always appreciate you having you on. And to everybody else, we'll see you next week. Thanks so much.